Hello folks, and welcome to our third video in our series on yields. Today we're going to talk about the butcher's yield test. And we're going to talk about that because when we butcher a whole piece of meat or a whole animal, we're going to have usable byproducts that are worth something. We can't just take it like a bag of carrots and the peels are going in the garbage. We're going to use an example of our turkey today, and we're trying to get the price for our turkey breasts that we would use in something like a clubhouse sandwich. But the legs, the thighs, the wings, the carcass, those are all worth something. We're not just going to cut the breasts off a whole turkey and throw them in the garbage, right? Now, this test is used to compare to what it would cost us to buy those products already trimmed and cut up. So for our scenario today, let's say we're deciding whether or not we're going to buy whole turkey and process it ourselves to get the breasts out to use the breast meat for clubhouse sandwiches, or we're going to buy just breast meat from our supplier, right? And that way we can compare the price side by side. So a butcher's yield test differs from the basic yield test because it's a large cut of meat, has byproducts of different values, and it's like buying a bag of unlabeled cuts of meats and you know that the total cost for each bag. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take that piece of meat and cut it into all the different ways that we're going to use it in our kitchen. So I have an example here of a turkey. So we've got a grade A turkey that weighed 16 pounds 4 ounces, and we paid 79 cents per pound as purchased for a total cost of $12.84. How do we figure out the $12.84? Well, 16 pounds 4 ounces, or 16.25 pounds, times our 79 cents per pound. Okay, so the first step that we would do in the kitchen is we would take our turkey and we would cut it up, and we would separate all the pieces into their separate piles and weigh them individually. So for example, the turkey thighs, we would cut all the thighs off and put them in a bowl and weigh them. We would cut our wings off, put them in a bowl and weigh them, bones, scraps, and then our trim breast that we wanted as a whole, and we end up with, this is our scenario. So let's say we butchered our turkey. We ended up with 2 pounds 11 ounces of thighs and 1 pound 3 ounces of wings and 7 pounds 12 ounces of bones and 3 ounces of scraps and 4 pounds 7 ounces of trim breast, which is what we're going to use for our clubhouse. That's what we're trying to determine a price per pound for, is our trim breasts. All of those all added up weigh 16 pounds 4 ounces, or what our turkey started out with, right? 16 pounds 4 ounces. If you look at the screen here, each one of these all added up matches our price up here, right? So that's our check. Did we miss something? Did we drop something on the floor, right? That's step one. We cut up the turkey or whatever meat that we're doing. What's usable, what's not, and we're going to figure that out. The next thing we do is we figure out a percentage of the whole turkey that we started with. So the first thing we need to do is we need to convert these numbers into a usable 1 unit, right? So I like to go to pounds because that's what we're going to figure out in the end is a cost per usable pound. So our thighs is 2 point something, right? And 11 ounces out of 16 ounces in a pound is 0.6875, right? Our wings are going to be 1.3 out of 16 ounces in a pound, 1875. Our bones is 12 is 0.75. 7 pounds, 7.75 pounds. Our 3 ounces is going to be 0.1875. And our trim breast, we end up with 4.7 divided by 16, 4375 pounds, and our total is 16.25. So in order to figure out our percentage, so our percentage of our thighs, we have 2.6875 divided by 16.25, which gives us 16.5%. The next one, we have 1.1875 divided by our 16.25, we end up with 7.3%. Our 7.75 divided by our 16.25 gives us 47.7%. Our scraps of 0.1875 divided by our 16.25 gives us 1.2%. And our trimmed breast, our 4.4375 divided by our 16.25 gives us 27.3%. If we add all these percentages up, we end up with 100%, or maybe 99.9 because we've rounded something. Okay? So we end up with something like that. So we've gone step one, we cut up the turkey, we weighed each individual part of the turkey, and then step two, we figured out what the percentages were, and they add up to 100%. So our 16.25 pounds, or 16 pounds 4 ounces, is 100% of our turkey. Now, step three confuses people because we're only trying to figure out the value of our usable pound for our trimmed breast. We're not trying to figure out what the values of our thighs, our wings, our bones, our scraps are. Those are values that if we were to buy the thighs separately from our supplier, what would it cost us? You see, the way this works is we're buying the turkey for the breasts for our clubhouse. The thighs are just sort of a bonus on the side. So if we're going to use that for something, we're probably going to have to buy more thighs to put on our buffet or whatever, right? So what would we pay for those thighs from our supplier? We would phone them up, right? So in the example here, you've been given a price of 0.58 cents per pound, right? I'm just going to erase this to make some room here. So we called up our supplier and they said, it's 58 cents per pound for our thighs and 42 cents per pound for our wings. And our turkey bones are 39 cents per pound. And scraps, those aren't worth anything, so they're zero, right? There's no calculation in step three. In a question given to you on an exam, this information will be given to you. You cannot calculate these ones. You're going to calculate the trim breast, this one down here again, right? So what we do now, though, in step four, is we calculate what's the total value of what we had. So we had 2.6875 pounds at 58 cents per pound. So what's 2.6875? 2.6875 times 0.58 per pound is going to give me $1.56. So the 2 pounds, 11 ounces of thighs that I got out of my turkey, if I was to buy those from my supplier, they'd be worth $1.56. Same for our wings. We've now got 1.1875 pounds times our wing price of 0.42. That's going to give us 50 cents, 0.50. So we had 50 cents worth of wings. Our bones, we had 7.75 pounds times our price for our bones of 39 cents. And we're going to end up with $3.02. $3.02. Scraps were worth nothing, so they're zero, right? So now we can figure out what our trim breast is, because everything in this column here for total value has to add up to what we paid for it, $12.84, right? So $1.56 plus 50 cents plus 302 plus what gives us $12.84? Well, we can take our $12.84, subtract our $1.56, subtract our 50 cents, subtract our $3.02, and we're going to end up with $7.76. So what did we pay essentially out of this $12.84 for our 4 pounds 7 ounces of trim breast? $7.76. That's what 4 pounds 7 ounces is worth, $7.76, because this stuff here, we used it, but everything has to add up to that $12.84, right? So once we know, I'm just going to clean up this a little bit here, that this is $7.76, we got 4.4375 pounds, for $7.76. So our next column here, cost per pound, how are we going to figure out what our cost per pound is? Well, if we got 4.4375 pounds for $7.76, any number divided by itself is 1, we can go 4.4375. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other. We're going to get 1 pound equals, I got punched into my calculator here, $1.75 per pound. So our cost per pound is 176, or 75, sorry, right? Now, if we want a price per ounce, we would then divide that by 16 ounces in a pound, which is going to give us our next column of 11 cents per ounce, right? Now notice, once I was done with these guys in red, oops, no information went in any more of these boxes. There's nothing to fill in here. We're done with those usable byproducts, and we're done with this at the bottom here, right? We have one last box to figure out here. I'm going to talk about that in a second, and that's cost multiplier. So first off, I want to talk about if we had done the old triangle, like we did with our produce, with a yield of 27.3% at 79 cents per pound AP. If we had done that old AP dollars over EP dollars times our yield percentage, and we had 0.273, and we had our 0.79 0.79 divided by 0.273, we would have been paying $2.89 per pound, way more than the $1.75. So we would have had to charge even more for our Clubhouse sandwich. But it's not a fair price to be charging our customers because we're getting the value out of these guys already here, right? It's not just 100% yield or 101 price and 27% yield. So that's where we take this into account so that we get a more usable price that's fair to us and fair to our customers, and we can keep our prices reasonable, right? So we've got $1.75 per pound. Cost multiplier is used to make short work of this later. So what I'm talking about is this is a lot of math to do, and we're not going to do this every time we buy a turkey. You're going to do this maybe once every 6 months or every 3 months, right? To make sure that you're calculating this properly. And there's a few factors that go into, we're going to talk about after a few examples that we go through. But cost multiplier is really, what did we multiply our as purchase price by to get our new edible portion cost? So 0.79 times what gave us our $1.75? Or how much of an increase was it, was a factor. So if we take 1.75 and divide by 0.79, we get 2.22 as our cost multiplier. So 0.79 times 2.22, it was $1.75. So what this allows us to do is if this price, AP price, fluctuates, goes up, goes down, we don't have to redo the whole chart again. We can simply multiply our new AP price, say it's $1.09 per pound, times our 2.22, and we're going to get a new cost per pound, right? It's basically an increase of 222%, right? If you want to look at it that way. So we don't have to recalculate this entire chart every time the price changes. That's what cost multiplier is all about. So next question, or I have an example here to go through, and we have, like I said, turkey's now selling for $1.09 per pound. The cost multiplier for the turkey breast was 222. What's our new cost per usable pound? Well, we simply take our new as purchase price and multiply it by the cost multiplier. It's right in the name, right? How do we use the CM? We multiply, right? So we take our $1.09 per pound and multiply times 222, so our new edible portion cost is $2.42 per pound. Okay, and then we divide that by 16, and we would end up with our cost per ounce of 15 cents. Now, I mentioned there's a couple of things that you have to remember when you're doing the butcher's yield test, right? The cost per usable pound generates the cost multiplier. You're not using the ounces because you're comparing your as purchased per pound or per kilo or whatever to the same unit. You can't mix the units, right? The cost per usable ounce helps determine the cost proportion. If you think about our clubhouse recipe, if we're costing out a clubhouse, we're not going to put a price per pound of turkey unless you're making a really big clubhouse, right? You're probably going to put 2 or 3 ounces of turkey breast on that whole clubhouse. So you'd want to know a price per ounce for your recipe costing. The cost multiplier allows us to adjust the cost without redoing the entire yield test, right? So when should we redo the yield test? If we've hired a new butcher or the skill has changed, that you're going to get those percentages are going to change and you're going to get a better than that 27.3% on the turkey that we had. Or if you've changed the grade of the product that you're using. For instance, you switch from a grade A turkey to a utility turkey and it's missing a wing, right? So your percentages are going to change of what your yields are, right? The test results are only relevant to that cut with the same specs or the same grade. And the test allows the chef to determine the better deal. Are we going to buy the whole turkey and use those breasts for our clubhouse and then use the legs and the thighs and the carcass elsewhere in the kitchen? Or are we just going to buy the turkey breast raw from our supplier, already pre-cut and pre-butchered for us? It's going to cost us more for that, but maybe we don't have the use for those other byproducts in our kitchen. Maybe we don't have the space or the skill to process it. There's all sorts of factors that go into determining whether we're going to buy something that's partially been processed, or are we going to process it ourselves? Is it something that represents our restaurant as a nose-to-tail restaurant, or doesn't it? Right? It all depends on the business that you're in and the expectations your customers have of your business. So that's a butcher's yield test. It's going to take you a few to go through to understand, going step by step. My suggestion is take this video and have an example and follow my steps one by one with your example, rather than trying to digest it all in one shot. The next video we're going to talk about, once we've got this turkey breast and we cook it, it shrinks, right? And we trim it, we lose some more, right? So the price keeps going up for an edible portion cost as we lose size, right? As we lose trim, right? How do we compensate for that? And what's the price for cooked trim turkey breast for our clubhouse sandwich once we actually put into our recipe costing for our clubhouse sandwich? All right, that's it for this one. We'll see you on the next one.